In conversation with Ruth Fabi, MBE, what is your deaf journey and how does it relate to your creativity? How do you feel about a Deaf Creative Manifesto for Wales and what do you think should be included within it?
Bore da, or prynhawn da, or noswaith da. It's lovely to be able to speak to you about my journey as a deaf creative. I'm Ruth Fabi, formerly known as Ruth Gould. Been living in Wales and leading Disability Arts Cymru since August 2019, so 3 years ago this month. I'm really excited about this perspective of having a deaf manifesto in the arts. It's long needed. And also the fact that our deaf voices are being held to shape the thinking and come up with solutions about where we need to be and what's stopped us being where we need to be. So I hope my little journey, my little testimony here will be of use. And thank you for asking me to be part of it. I became deaf, well, actually born deaf, but I became diagnosed as a deaf girl when I was only 6 years old, and then I started wearing hearing aids. Before that, I was seen as someone who was educationally subnormal. I think a lot of deaf people at that kind of era in the 60s had that kind of a label put on them. My mother was quite embarrassed about me being deaf, and even at the age of 11, when my head teacher felt I should go to a deaf school, she refused outright to let me go. The fact that she was a teacher in the same school complex made her voice have weight. So I went into mainstream school with never having any support, apart from something that was once seen on a school newsletter: make sure Ruth sits at the front so she can see and lip read. Well, I'd never had lip reading tests or any help in that way. When it came to those career times at 16, 17, thinking I'd never had any deaf positive role models in my life. I didn't know of any other deaf people, apart from my mother, who was deaf and only started wearing hearing aids when I was diagnosed at 6, but hid them and didn't let anyone know she was deaf at all. She used to put her hair over her ears and things like this. So there was a very twisted stigma in the family I was growing up with. But anyway, trying to look at what careers I could do. I really wanted to be a midwife and wanted to go nursing, and because of the way my ears operated, I often got infections. They saw me as a risk, and so I was prevented from being a nurse. I then thought I'd be a police officer. I really wanted to be part of the community, and they sent me for some hearing tests and quite bluntly told after an audiology exam, no way can you be a police officer, you won't be able to hear a thing. Still never, because everything happened to me as a child, no one had ever sat down with me and said, this is what your hearing is, this is what you can't hear, this is what you can do to help yourself. I had no support at all. I do remember doing some lip reading classes, not lip reading, elocution type exercises with a speech therapist when I was about 7 or 8 to try and make me sound better, but they just let me go. I did have a good reading age and I was able to lose myself in books and writing poetry. So that creativity was there. I did like to, and I know now I've got ADHD, I could never sit still. I was always dancing and moving and wanted to do dance. I was always getting into trouble for just being hyperactive, really. But everything about me was wrong. That was wrong. Being deaf was wrong. Things came to a head and I actually had to leave home quite dramatically, and I found myself just drifting, working in cafes and things and not really trying to get my life together, until after I'd had my baby. I got married at the age of 22. I went to a dance school to exercise, to get actually fitter and in better shape after having a baby. But I found something ignited in me and got me able to dance and express the music more fully. And I felt, this is what I want to do. I want to be an artist and perform and dance and things. I then saw there was a 3-year course at Liverpool Theatre School, and I thought, well, can I go for that? I'm kind of seen as a bit too old, and I applied and got in, and that was the start of my artistic training. I went in as a dancer, but part of the course meant you had to do speech and drama, which I'd love to do, but I didn't want to speak in public because I was ashamed of my deaf voice. what was wonderful is that the drama teacher there, Tess Headsbeath, really got a hold of me and said, "What is it about you?" And I told her about my deafness, what I'm now calling deafness gain, because I hate the fact everything about our impairments is put as a loss, a deficit. There's actually skills we get from these things that happen to us in our lives. And she just helped me with my articulating organs to actually tighten my tongue tip, tighten my soft palate, hard palate. And so I started to do more drama and things. And I've never stopped doing drama and things. And I didn't actually know about the world of disability and deaf arts culture until a few years later. And I've had the amazing privilege since about 1994 of working full time in this sector, promoting artists and making things happen. Back in Liverpool, establishing Dada Fest, Disability and Deaf Arts, because acknowledging our cultural differences made a difference. Because the deaf community wasn't really engaging with the organisation that was called Disability Arts Forum in Liverpool, because they had a problem with the term disability, because deaf culture is a culture that people are so proud of. So language is really important, but it's not always easy to find what fits everybody else. Because I'm not deaf culturally in terms of having the sign as my first language, though I started to learn it when I was doing my mime in 1986. So I started to incorporate that in some of the performances and clown work I did back then. But there can be real distinctions between where you are in a deaf hierarchy, and it can ostracize us as deaf people and make us not feel we belong. But I think that's where the arts are really critical, and why this manifesto needs to happen now, because we can have these conversations and acknowledge the terms that are helpful and the terms that are not helpful, and why. They'll be different for everyone, but I do think a deaf arts manifesto that covers any deafened people and culturally deaf people is a really important thing and way forward. Part of my work has been about making opportunity for other people, and also challenging some of the misapprehensions or the assumptions that are made about us as deaf people. I think all of us as deaf people have had the experience of someone over articulating to try and be understood, or treating you in a terribly patronising sort of way. I mean, I've actually brought that into my creative work. I've got a lovely piece of drama I do saying, "Excuse me, can you say that again? Excuse me, you look stupid over articulating," or anything to try and get people to realise, just treat us as ordinary. And yeah, there's so much in what we can do through the arts to show people's misapprehensions as they've grown up. There's the stereotypical feelings they have around deaf people, particularly in this case. I think part of my work, working in disability arts, first Manchester, Liverpool, now Wales, has been changing and challenging those assumptions through the arts, but also challenging the social justice issues that prevent us from having the same role and equality as other people, as performers or artists or creatives. Making a way for other people is such an important thing, but it's not. A lot of it can be around access and support, but it's not a one size fits all. People assume because they hear I'm deaf, I want a British Sign Language interpreter. I actually fare better when I actually work with a sign-supported lip speaker, where they use sign to support the lip patterns they're making, because not all lip patterns will give you the truth of what someone's saying. When I came across that only 10 years ago, it liberated me in an amazing way. And I started to go more international in making the connections with the work I was doing then, and I visited different countries. Access to work has been a service which has paid for that, which has kept me in a job and enabled me to work, and also to go to these international places and to have a lip reader, speaker, and a note taker has given me the access to be part of that. They're very unique to me, those sorts of services, but every deaf person will have something different that they will need. So we can never get a prescriptive list that will cover everything. What we need is a conversation that's put through the manifesto that says you need to create space for people to say it as it is for them, and without people misunderstanding or assuming or thinking, oh no, you can just have a note taker and nothing else. It can be the environment we're in. Hard surfaces in a lot of halls are just a nightmare when you're dealing with tinnitus and another kind of hearing issues, with the way you get sound into yourself. Gosh, there's so much I could say on this, but I know part of wanting to talk to me is about my creative journey, and it has been scary for me, particularly when I was going through the dance course, because I was so ashamed of being deaf, and so aware that I was a burden on other people, that I never really caused any friction or would ever say what I really needed. I didn't know I could, because just to be there was enough. But when I think back of all the missed opportunities, like I didn't manage to get good dance grades because I couldn't follow things when we were doing floor exercises. Trying to lip read someone following around the room with your head bending back just didn't work. People just didn't understand that I needed to see them full on to know where I was going. But also the instructions were so fast when we were doing dance routines, I could never hear them. And so it looked like I could never really dance because I was always behind people. Even when I started being braver and started doing my speech work in theatre, and we have to do Shakespeare and these sort of things, I would get mocked and laughed at by some of the other students in the room because I didn't sound right. And what was quite interesting for me, I went through the LAMDA and Guildhall exam routes, and I actually by accident found my last Guildhall paper, no, LAMDA paper, sorry. I was going for my LAMDA acting, the final grade. I've gone right through everything, got my gold medal and everything. I was going for the final one, and I was actually, I failed because they said, the sounds you make are weird and you've got a strange accent. We can't figure it out. Your tongue tip is loose. So they were going on, not about my acting ability, but the way I sounded and spoke. And it was like there was this ideal that we had to speak the Queen's English. And if you didn't have that articulation, you were not good enough and you would fail. I'd worked hard to be able to be understood, yet it wasn't good enough. What that did to me as a person who wanted to act was like, oh, I'm a liability. I can't do this. So I concentrated on writing things for other people and directing and putting productions on. And then moving into disability and deaf arts, that kind of role has continued for me. And I've loved it and I won't regret it. I don't regret putting my creative side on hold while I was doing all that kind of work, which is coming up 28 years. It's a long time. It has been interesting, though, to see how quickly in a generation tolerance for the different voice and the different body and the different way of thinking and seeing and being is being adopted into the mainstream arts culture now. To see productions where deaf voices are on the stage, it's wonderful. I couldn't get there. I was failed. So we are able to challenge some of those things. And I think some of the values we have on what we do when we're actually assessing work really limit where people are at. It parallels with a lot of isms in all that, racism and sexism and ageism, disableism, ableism. I don't know if deafism is a word, but that doesn't sound right because deaf culture is something I'm really proud of. But people do put limits on what we can do, which is no fault of our own. The manifesto really does need to articulate all those sorts of things, know what's out there for people to get support, know how to challenge the keepers of those arts, organisations, institutions, to take those people they've absolutely omitted. I'm getting the wrong word, but the people they've not included in their work on stage, in the art galleries, to listen and respond to the different perspectives we bring from our lived experience of being deaf, our lived experience of being disabled. But it's also about having those policy thinking and the social model of disability. Even though I know in deaf culture there's a different enhancement of that approach, it still is a great framework to start from, which admits we are disabled, we are excluded by society barriers. And in the arts, we see them everywhere. We're often only seen as a bit part in a play or production. It's very rarely you get mainstream characters who are disabled. And if you do get them, they get Oscars, or they get the focus is on their wrongness, their impairment and things. We've got to start being seen as ordinary. Being deaf is ordinary. It's part of our life. We don't know any different. And we need that narrative to be changed in what we're doing. Oh gosh, there's so much more I could say, because the journey I've been on has been an incredibly painful one at times. I've had some terrible things said to me. Once I went to an event and asked, "Is there a hearing loop here?" You get that look of horror on somebody. Oh, I'll go and find out. They run away and come back and go, "Oh, she'll be here in half an hour." You know, thinking a hearing loop is a BSL interpreter. The lack of knowledge and understanding to people totally blanking me from talking over me, talking away from me because they know I couldn't hear. Or when you're trying to lead a production or a festival and you get that treatment, it's incredibly painful. Because you are being excluded deliberately, and people will do that to you if they can get away with it. But sadly, they don't get away with it with me. I've had to learn that confidence, and I think for many deaf people, I think that's key in this. Our confidence gets shattered because we're constantly in that other place of not really know what's going on or being invited in, and we have to push our way in. One of my favourite signs for my name that some of the deaf community in Liverpool got was a finger in the air and this pushing forward, because it's persuasion, pushing in, and they saw that I was doing that in the work I was doing. I wasn't afraid to go in and show people what it's like to use sign by signing myself, because I do sign myself. I'm not fluent in British Sign Language, or should be Welsh Sign Language. We need to develop Welsh Sign Language for this manifesto with more recognition than it's already got. But to actually show people we can communicate on so many different levels. I love the fact that I've worked with so many brilliant deaf artists who have just managed to keep on working full time in the arts over the last 20, 25 years. We have to encourage that more in Wales, not make it a one-off. This manifesto needs to be endorsed and revisited year on year to make sure the arts sector, the arts funders, the Welsh Government follows through and it allows people in, not just with the percentage number crunching, but with the productions, the artwork, the creativity that comes from our community, whether deaf or deafened or deafness gain, as I would say, or any of the other phrases. We need to be there because deafness is never going to go away. It's part of who we are, and we're not tolerating a society that wants an able-bodied, lovely, good-looking person anymore. We want reality, and this is our reality. So let this be reflected in all we do in the creative sector.
And what about the next stage for you, Ruth?
I feel I put a lot of my creativity on hold. I've had little occasions and been able to programme work and get some great initiatives as part of Disability Arts, Cymru particularly. But sadly, I've acquired a lung condition, which means it's very hard to manage a team and work full time. And I'm having to take retirement to look after myself and live that bit longer. But what I'm decided to do is to create my own artwork again, go back to my roots of writing monologues, writing plays. I've had a little bit of creativity last year in an exhibition in America on the death of my mother of COVID, and very poignant to be able to do something like that. But I feel that's my final statement really on life. My deafness experience will come through that. And it needs to. I want to shape it in that way so people get to see that we can do plays that can write that voice in and give the truth of that voice in this sort of work. So I really want to do all of this stuff. I'm frustrated. I'm not getting down to it as much as I want to. But When you're a creative person, you can't stop. It will be there. The last breath I take, I hope I do it with a resonant groan because I just love the life I've been given. I couldn't have said that years ago, but now I can. And I want other deaf people to feel that and live to the full, because we've only got this one shot and too many people try to keep us out of life. We don't want that anymore. Let us get right into it.